Hello, my friend. Welcome back to English Conversation Zone. I'm Jake, and today I'm talking about learn English with stories. You know, learning English with stories is one of the most natural and enjoyable ways to improve your language skills. And I'm so happy you're here today because we're going to explore this wonderful method together. Stories have been used for thousands of years to teach, to share knowledge, and to connect people. And guess what? They work perfectly for learning English too. So why are stories so powerful for learning? Well, think about this for a moment. When you were a child, how did you learn your first language? Through stories, right? Your parents told you stories. You watched stories on television. You read picture books with stories. Stories are natural. They're how our brains like to learn. And this doesn't change when we grow up. When you learn English with stories, you're not just memorizing words from a list, you're seeing how words work together in real situations. You're learning grammar without even thinking about grammar rules. Haha, isn't that nice? You're absorbing the language naturally, just like a child does. Let me explain what I mean by learning with stories. Pause here and think about this. A story has characters, right? It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has emotions. It has action. When you read or listen to a story, your brain becomes active. You start to imagine the scenes. You feel what the characters feel. And while all this is happening, you're learning English. Now, let me tell you about a simple story method I use with my students. Imagine this situation. There's a man named Tom. Tom wakes up late one morning. He looks at his clock and says, "Oh no!" He jumps out of bed. He rushes to the bathroom. He brushes his teeth very quickly. He gets dressed in 5 minutes. Then he runs to catch the bus. You see, this is a very simple story. But look at all the English you just learned. You learned wakes up late. You learned jumps out of bed. You learned rushes to the bathroom. These are real phrases that English speakers use every day, and you learned them in a natural context, not from a boring list. Let's continue with Tom's story. Tom gets on the bus. He sits down and takes a deep breath. He's safe now. He won't be late for work. But then, oh no, he realizes something. He forgot his wallet at home. Now he can't pay for the bus. He feels embarrassed. His face turns red. The bus driver looks at him and asks, "Do you have money for the ticket?" Pause here and say this phrase slowly with me. His face turns red. This is an idiom in English. When we say someone's face turns red, we mean they feel embarrassed or shy. It's a very common expression. You'll hear it all the time in English conversations. Tom's story continues. He explains to the bus driver that he forgot his wallet. The bus driver is kind. He smiles and says, "It's okay, pay me tomorrow." Tom feels relieved. He says thank you many times. When he gets to work, he tells his colleague about his morning. His colleague laughs and says, "That sounds like a rough morning." Another phrase for you, a rough morning. When we say something is rough, we mean it's difficult or not pleasant. So a rough morning is a difficult morning, a morning with problems. Take a moment to think about this phrase. Have you ever had a rough morning? I'm sure you have. We all have. Now, you see how this story method works? Through Tom's simple adventure, you learned real English expressions. You learned vocabulary. You learned how English speakers describe everyday situations. And I bet you can remember these phrases now because they were part of a story, not just random words on a page. Let me share another beautiful thing about learning with stories. Stories help you remember. Our brains love stories. When information comes in a story form, our brain pays attention more. It's like our brain says, "Oh, this is interesting. I want to know what happens next." And because your brain is interested, it remembers better. Think about this. If I tell you to memorize these words, apple, store, forgot, returned, bought, that's boring, right? It's hard to remember. But what if I tell you this story instead? Sarah went to the store to buy an apple, but she forgot her money, so she returned home, got her wallet, and then bought 3 apples. Now you can remember all those words easily because they're connected in a story. You're doing well, my friend. Learning takes time, and you're taking the right steps. Now, let me tell you about different types of stories you can use for learning English. There are so many options, and you can choose what you enjoy most.
First, there are simple, everyday stories. These are stories about normal life, like Tom's story that we talked about earlier. These stories use common vocabulary. They describe situations you might experience yourself: going to the supermarket, meeting a friend for coffee, cooking dinner, taking a walk in the park. These everyday stories are perfect for beginners because the language is practical and useful. Then we have short folk tales and fables. You know what fables are, right? They're short stories, often with animals as characters, and they teach a lesson. For example, the story of the tortoise and the hare. The slow tortoise races against the fast rabbit. The rabbit is too confident. He takes a nap during the race. The tortoise keeps going slowly but steadily. And guess what? The tortoise wins. The lesson is slow and steady wins the race. Pause here and repeat this idiom with me. Slow and steady wins the race. This means if you keep working consistently, even if you're not the fastest, you'll succeed in the end. This is perfect for language learning, isn't it? You don't need to rush. Just keep practicing every day and you'll improve.
Another type of story you can use is personal stories. These are real stories from real people. Maybe stories from English speakers about their lives, their experiences, their travels. When you listen to personal stories, you hear authentic English. You hear how people really speak. You learn casual expressions and natural sentence structures. I remember when I started learning Spanish, I listened to many personal stories from Spanish speakers. They talked about their childhood, their families, their jobs. And through these stories, I learned so much. Not just vocabulary, but also culture. I learned how Spanish-speaking people think, what's important to them, how they express emotions. The same thing happens when you learn English with stories. Now, let me give you some practical tips for learning English with stories. This is okay if you need to take notes. First tip, choose stories at your level. Don't pick stories that are too difficult. If you don't understand most of the words, you'll feel frustrated. Start with simple stories. Children's books are actually wonderful for English learners. Don't feel embarrassed about reading children's books. They use clear, simple language, and the stories are often charming and fun. Second tip, read or listen to the same story multiple times. Yes, multiple times. The first time, you understand the main idea. The second time, you notice more details. The third time, you really absorb the vocabulary and phrases. Repetition is your friend in language learning. Don't think you need to read a new story every day. It's better to know one story very well than to read 10 stories quickly without understanding them deeply. Third tip, say the words out loud. When you read a story, don't just read it silently in your mind. Read it out loud. Move your mouth. Hear your own voice speaking English. This helps your pronunciation. It helps your fluency. It makes the language feel more real and natural to you. Let me tell you another story now, and we'll practice together. This story is about a woman named Lisa. Lisa loves coffee. Every morning, she goes to the same coffee shop near her house. She always orders the same thing, a large cappuccino with extra foam. The barista knows her well. His name is Marco. One day, Lisa arrives at the coffee shop, but something is different. There's a new barista. Marco isn't there. Lisa feels a little sad. She orders her usual cappuccino. The new barista is friendly, but it's not the same. Lisa sits down with her coffee and opens her book. Take a moment here. Notice the phrase, "it's not the same." This is a very common expression in English. When something changes and you don't like the change, you can say, "it's not the same." For example, if you move to a new city, you might say, "my new apartment is nice, but it's not the same as my old home." You understand? Good. Lisa's story continues. After a few minutes, someone taps her shoulder. She looks up. It's Marco. He's wearing regular clothes, not his work uniform. He smiles and says, "Hi, Lisa. Today is my day off, but I came here for coffee anyway. This place has the best coffee in town." Lisa laughs. She realizes that Marco loves this coffee shop just as much as she does. They sit together and chat for an hour. Lisa makes a new friend. What a nice story, right? And look at what you learned. You learned day off. That's when you don't work, when you have a break from your job. You learned the best in town. This is an expression we use when something is the highest quality in a particular place. This restaurant has the best pizza in town. She's the best doctor in town. Say it slowly with me. the best in town. You also learned the phrase tap someone's shoulder. This means to gently touch someone's shoulder to get their attention. In the story, Marco tapped Lisa's shoulder to say hello. This is something people do in English-speaking countries when they want to politely interrupt someone or get their attention. Now, here's something important I want to tell you about stories and grammar. When you learn English with stories, you learn grammar naturally. You don't need to memorize rules. You see how grammar works in real contexts. For example, in Lisa's story, you saw past tense verbs: arrived, ordered, sat, looked, smiled. You saw these verbs being used naturally. Your brain learns the pattern without you even thinking about it. This is how children learn grammar in their first language. They don't study grammar rules, they just hear and read many examples, and their brain figures out the patterns. You can do the same thing with English. Trust the process. Trust that your brain is learning even when you're just enjoying a story.
Let me share one more story with you today, my friend. This one is about a young boy named Danny. Danny is afraid of dogs. When he sees a dog on the street, he crosses to the other side. Even small dogs make him nervous. His parents are worried about this fear. One day, Danny's grandmother comes to visit. She brings her dog, a small golden puppy named Sunny. Sunny is friendly and calm. At first, Danny stays far away from Sunny. But Sunny is patient. She just lies on the floor, wagging her tail slowly. After a while, Danny becomes curious. He takes one step closer, then another step. Then he sits on the floor, still keeping distance from Sunny. Pause here. Wagging her tail means moving the tail from side to side. Dogs do this when they're happy. It's a very useful phrase. And keeping distance means staying far away from something or someone. Danny was keeping distance from Sunny because he was still a little afraid. Hours pass. Danny and Sunny look at each other. Sunny doesn't move suddenly. She just stays calm. Finally, Danny reaches out his hand. He touches Sunny's soft fur. It feels warm and nice. Sunny's tail wags faster. She licks Danny's hand gently. Danny laughs. For the first time, he's not afraid. By the end of the day, Danny and Sunny are friends. He learns that not all dogs are scary. Some dogs are kind and gentle. This story teaches us an important lesson, doesn't it? Sometimes our fears go away when we face them slowly and patiently. And this is true for learning English too. Maybe you're afraid of speaking English. Maybe you're afraid of making mistakes. But if you practice slowly, patiently, like Danny approaching Sunny, your fear will become smaller and smaller. Now, you've learned so much today through these stories. You learned real phrases, vocabulary, idioms, and grammar. You saw how English speakers describe feelings, actions, and situations. And I hope you enjoyed the stories too, because learning should be enjoyable. Before we finish today, I want to give you homework. Yes, a little homework, but it's fun homework, I promise. I want you to create your own short story in English. It can be very simple, just 5 or 6 sentences. Write about your day, or about something that happened to you, or even make up a little story. Use simple words, don't worry about perfect grammar, just practice telling a story in English. Remember, you're doing really well. Learning a language takes time, but every day you practice, you get better. Stories are your friends in this journey. They make learning natural, enjoyable, and effective. Keep reading stories. Keep listening to stories. Keep telling your own stories. This is how you'll become confident and fluent in English. Thank you so much for being here with me today, my friend. I'm proud of you for taking the time to improve your English. Keep going, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep enjoying the beautiful adventure of learning. I'll see you next time, and until then, take care and keep learning with stories.